Hey folks, Doug Henschen at Constellation Research. I cover data to decisions.
And I'm Dion Hinchcliffe, Vice President and Principal Analyst covering CIO issues and future of work. And we're your co-hosts for episode 57 of Constellation Research TV. We're here covering the news and trends in enterprise technology, as always. This week, Doug will share a summary of his latest market overview report on analytics and business intelligence products.
And in our second segment, I'm joined by Ray Wong, Holger Mueller, and Andy Thurai in a recap of announcements from Zoho's Zoholics event in Austin, Texas last week. And in our final segment, we'll share Dion's panel on IT's role in customer experience from our recent Ambient Experience Summit in Napa Valley. But first, let's get to the news.
All right. Well, it was another really exciting couple weeks in the topic that's hot around the world right now. That's generative artificial intelligence. And so we've moved well beyond ChatGPT, which is still the darling, of course, and this is getting so much attention. But topics like AutoGPT have become very hot in terms of how do we instrument generative AI to do multi-step processes in the real world, not just answer queries, but actually go and do things. And so AutoGPT is a emerging framework and an approach. It's an actual GitHub project, but there's many offshoots of it, looking at trying to say, how do we get this to actually do AI to actually act for us? And I think there's lots of both safety and ethical issues with this. And if you actually use these, they're still in their early days, but they are functional. They can actually go out and do things for you, interact with the web, for example, pull information, fill out forms, run applications, interact with those applications. Has a lot of interesting implications. So we're following that very closely. But the AI train is leaving the station, and there's all sorts of things happening. Baby AGI is another project that's emerging that's getting a lot of attention. But really, what's happening is that companies are trying to sit down and figure out what they're going to do, how much access they're going to provide to these types of tools to their workers. You'll look at some of the writing I've done and research on generative AI and the future of work. We need to make sure we have our AI solutions compliant. They have to be safe. They have to protect privacy of our customers and our employees across the board. So we're seeing a wave of AI tools coming in from the big vendors. Microsoft has added this to Office 365, what they now call Microsoft 365. And a lot of other companies are adding AI in faster than we're able to actually absorb it. So really the focus right now in generative AI from the practical standpoint, from the CIO point of view is how do we govern and manage this, make sure that it's operating effectively for our organizations, but also in a safe manner. So there has to be some sort of layer to make that happen. And model ops now continues to be seeming the best candidate for where we're going to manage and govern AI as a central capability to make sure we're being consistent with our models, that we're providing that layer of compliance, that we're being safe and all of that, but trying to get these products to actually interact with those centralized governing and management and privacy layers is going to be the next big topic. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of the big focus right now. Doug, what are you seeing right now in this topic?
Well, yeah, every event I go to at Zoho's Zoholics event this week, they announced an integration of 14 other applications with ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. That's sort of a short-term strategy. Usually you see an integration not with the chat because it doesn't really let you commercialize. You see an integration with the LLM. Their long-term strategy at Zoho is to develop their own LLM, and I would never discount Zoho's ability to do something homegrown, even on something as massive as an LLM. But for this interim, integration with ChatGPT, customers are going to have their own ChatGPT account, and they're going to have to implement this add-on on their end because the licensing of ChatGPT doesn't allow other vendors to sort of commercialize it as a feature. But that's sort of a good thing because many users aren't necessarily ready for the power of generative AI. They're not aware of any possible privacy implications of integrating with ChatGPT. So you'll want some administrative oversight. And they said, we're pointedly not integrating out of the box. We can't do that. And we think it's good to have administrators kind of controlling who is integrating their applications with ChatGPT. Yet another announcement this week: ServiceNow and Hugging Face released an open access LLM for code generation. They described this LLM called StarCoder as, quote, the most responsibly developed and strongest performing open access, open science, and open governance LLM, large language model. And that's sort of an apparent barb at OpenAI. And of course, with all this buzz around generative AI, there's also, government scrutiny. The White House dragged Microsoft's Satya Nadella, Google's Sundar Pichai, as well as the leaders of OpenAI and Anthropic into a 2-hour meeting last week in the White House, in which they pressed these leaders to limit the risks of AI. In another show of concern, Lena Khan, the chairman of the FTC, published an opinion piece in the New York Times in which she warned that without regulation, generative technology could entrench the power of the biggest tech companies and give scammers really potent tools that they could use in scamming. But really the bottom line to me is this was sort of like, a show of concern. We're seeing healthy debate. A big figure at Google resigned recently in the AI camp and was making noises about the risk of AI. But I'd say we're likely to continue to see the EU leading the charge on AI regulation for now. Dion, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think they have the only regulation currently out there in terms of the AI Act, and it really isn't very comprehensive. It just, you have to do. There's a few unacceptable uses, like you can't have AI in charge of weapon systems and things like that, which just makes sense to me. And I think that's where we're going to hopefully see the same in other jurisdictions where we do the regulation or enact regulations for the things that are obviously we have to secure, and then it will incrementally tighten the gauntlet as we try and figure out what's the best thing to do. But in my second news item, I spent a couple days in San Diego this week at Appian World. For those of you who don't know, Appian is one of the leading enterprise low-code platforms. Now, Constellation has two short lists, one for citizen development low-code tools. That's for people who want to go beyond spreadsheets and create a more multi-user, more controllable, more rigorous type of solution, basically building applications on demand very quickly, but at a departmental level. Enterprise low code is our other short list, and this is where Appian really shines in that they've created a commercial enterprise grade solution that really has the kind of management and enterprise capabilities around things like process management and workflow, process execution and things like that really get into how organizations actually work. But they've built Appian to really be to build applications not just on the periphery of your organization, but right in the core. So you can run your business on Appian. And I talked to a lot of companies that were doing that. A lot of CIOs who had one financial services firm had found that their competitor was now had bought the vendor that actually ran their core portfolio system. And so they looked at, well, should we buy something or should we build something that has our differentiation in it? And they said, well, Appian already has most of the kind of really enterprise grade functionality, has a data fabric that can touch into all of our data sources, has all this process mining capability. They can look at what we're doing and actually help us build the low code solutions for us. And so the FDA, for example, their CIO is there. They control a fifth of the economy, and they do all 300 of their different types of inspections are all enabled through Appian. And the key is they can roll out updates faster and adapt to regulations much quicker. And not actually, they said they would have to stop parts of the economy until they had caught their systems up to actually support some of the inspections that were required. With Appian, they don't have to do that. They can move much more quickly. And so we saw proof point after proof point that low code has gone from the periphery of organizations to how companies are actually running their business. That's a new proof point that we've not seen in scale before. And those two examples I cited were just a couple. Notable though, of course, the topic of AI came up, and Appian's adding AI support, including they now have an open AI plugin that will allow you to do Chat GPT generation right inside of the application, but they really think that it's going to be in things like analytics, where you'll be able to, instead of doing point and click dashboards, they actually demonstrated using natural language to use AI to generate the most amazing analytics dashboards. Doug, I'd love for you when you get a chance to take a look at that and see what you think. But there was lots of oohs and ahs in the audience of things that would have taken maybe even a couple hours trying to get right inside of a point and click dashboard tool. They were doing it in single sentences and in seconds. That was quite impressive.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot in the analytics and BI space. My market overview, I'll talk about it a little bit in my segment coming up. A lot of use of introduction of generative AI, at least specifically from Microsoft, from Salesforce with Tableau, and Salesforce CRM Analytics, and from ThoughtSpot on using generative AI. So yeah, having a conversation with your data and quickly developing dashboards. Moving on to my second news item. It's the big news here at Constellation Research that we've hired journalist, editor, and pundit Larry Dignan, formerly of ZDNet, to lead our Constellation Insights coverage of enterprise tech news. As you can see on the blog tab at constellationr.com, Larry has already published dozens of items on tech news developments, including an analysis of recent public cloud earnings, the big move among customers of these clouds to optimize their cloud spending. And you'll also find recent items on Apple's earnings, on Salesforce's Slack GPT announcement. And no surprise, he's got some primers on generative AI, as well as a number of news coverage of some of the announcements in generative. And we really encourage you to make constellationr.com/blog your daily destination for enterprise news. But that's all the time we have for news this week. But stay tuned for a recap of my new market overview report on analytics and BI, Constellation's roundup of announcements from Zoho's Zoholics event in Austin, Texas, and Dion's panel on IT's role in customer experience from the Ambient Experience Summit. Hey folks, Doug Henschen of Constellation Research here to talk about my latest report, Analytics and Business Intelligence Evolve for Cloud, Embedding, and Generative AI. Now this is an in-depth 56-page market overview report with analysis of 3 key trends and 17 leading vendors. Now the analytics and BI market is mature in many respects, but it's evolving in 3 important ways that are at the core of this report: cloud deployment, embedding, and augmented capabilities. And I'm going to speak to all of these in a moment. But first, let me say a thing or two about the report. There are many reports out there that deliver sort of a one-size-fits-all ranking approach in a box. We believe that no single offering can be in that proverbial top right corner for all customers. Now consider first whether you are heavily invested in an enterprise applications portfolio. Now, if you're deeply invested in apps from, say, Infor or Microsoft or Oracle or Salesforce or SAP or Zoho, for example, this should put the companion Infor Burst or Microsoft Power BI or Oracle Analytics Cloud or Salesforce CRM Analytics, SAP Analytics Cloud, or Zoho Analytics, respectively. It should put one of these on your short list. They have sort of an integrated data model, pre-built data integration, pre-built reports, pre-built dashboards, faster time to value, a lot of productivity gains. And so obviously this is something that just sort of trumps any sort of random ranking just based on factors on an X and Y axis. Now the first trend, and another factor that kind of changes things up from this traditional ranking approach, is cloud. Cloud deployment is becoming hugely important, and we think it's obvious that you should consider which cloud or clouds that you operate on. But it so happens that the product that most reports put in their top right corner is only available on one cloud. Now, can a product realistically be selected as your enterprise standard if all of your data or most of your data is on a different cloud than that service is available on? We think not. So as part of our research we found that every one of these vendors now offers its analytics and BI offering as SaaS on at least one cloud, with the most popular choice being offering that service on AWS. So the bar has been raised, and that's why we have updated our cloud-based analytics and BI shortlist to include only those companies that offer their software as SaaS or a managed service on at least 2 major clouds. So it's a new multi-cloud shortlist, and you can find it at constellationr.com/shortlist. So next up, the next trend that we looked at in our analysis is embedded capabilities. Now, embedded approaches are helping organizations to deliver insights where people work, not just in dedicated reports and dashboards where you have to go off and navigate to a separate spot, a separate report, a dashboard, and then you kind of look at that analysis, try to interpret it, and go back to the work and go back to the question you're trying to answer. Sometimes you might even forget what you were trying to ask. So embedded approaches are emerging to deliver insights within enterprise apps, within custom apps, within low-code and no-code apps, within productivity applications like Word or Office applications or collaboration platforms, or even within workflows and business processes. So you often get much more concise insights that are supportive of a specific decision or action you're trying to make. And as you can see in this figure from the report, the trends in 4 areas are helping to accelerate this maturation. And if we go to the next slide here, you can also see that we've come up with our first ever embedded analytics shortlist, which features 9 of the vendors from this report. And again, you can find all the Constellation shortlists at constellationr.com/shortlist. Now, the third and final trend that we looked at as part of this market overview of the analytics and BI landscape is AI and ML augmentation, which is about using the power of computers to make analytics more predictive, more assistive, and more automated. And in many cases, these features are uncovering insights that just don't pop out in a data visualization. So on the cutting edge, vendors are starting to introduce generative AI features. Of course, this is all the rage right now, but Microsoft, Salesforce, and ThoughtSpot are among the early innovators that are now previewing new features based on generative AI. You can see examples here in this figure from my report, the types of capabilities that are being envisioned, and includes generative data prep, generative data analysis capabilities, predictive features, and most particularly natural language query and natural language explanation features. And in some cases, even code prep, introducing sort of generating SQL queries, for example, using generative AI. But it's important to note that none of these features are generally available at this time. So we held off on updating our augmented analytics shortlist, which was published in August of 2022. And we do plan to update that shortlist on our usual schedule, coming late summer, early fall, and we'll consider any generative AI features or other new features so long as they are generally available at that time. We think it's irresponsible to sort of base an analysis on something that's in very limited or private preview at this point. So wrapping up, that's a quick look at our new research, my new market overview on analytics and BI. And the real meat of this report is in the vendor by vendor, page by page, in-depth analysis. It accounts for more than half of this 56-page report, and it's designed to help you narrow down your search to a short list of candidates that are best suited to your organization. And you have unique context, you have unique needs, unique priorities, and they aren't captured really on a generic X and Y axis. So you can check it out at constellationr.com/research, and thanks for watching.
So this is Doug Henschen of Constellation Research. We're here at Zoholics event in Austin, Texas. We're here at University of Texas AT&T Executive Center, and we've just taken in the analyst briefings here. Number of announcements. We're going to get to the generative AI. We're hearing about generative AI at every event we go to this year. But let's kick off. Ray, why don't you talk about some of their SMB announcements?
Yeah, one of the amazing things that happened here is really talking about solo and freelancers. And that's an area where Zoho is actually putting more effort in just as they're going up in the enterprise. And if you think about everything you need to do to get started, right? You got to get your name, you got to get incorporation, you got to get your first website up, you got to get email, domain registration, where's your location? Zoho's taking care of all that. And I think what's really important here is they're actually going after the B2B2C market where entrepreneurs are actually create businesses, they're going to create nodes, and that network effect is going to be so powerful, whether it's like doing business listings, trying to do pricing analysis, trying to actually get group purchasing operations, and banks are ready to sign up, legal entities are probably ready to go with them, all trying to help them with small business formation.
And those companies will move up and become enterprise customers at some point.
And it's mobile first, right? Super interesting numbers from India. 15 million PCs, 500 million smartphones. No one.
Yeah, it's all here.
Yeah.
Holger, tell us about the browser.
Yeah, very interesting out of left field, or not so much out of left field for Zoho, which has its own text processor, spreadsheet, collaboration software, meeting software, and so on. So now it's about building a browser all under the privacy moniker. Very interesting, built on the Chromium engine with taking things out which are not relevant. Because defaulting to Google, they built their own location engine, they built their own translation engine for that. And it comes with different modes, which is interesting, including something interesting for consumer like kids mode at home for your kids and a business mode and private mode with all high level of quality. Good move in my view, it's consistent with Zoho, but it's always the people who don't have a public cloud who's stressing on this. So the important thing is because changing browsers for CIOs and CISOs is major pain difficult is that Zoho is committed to make it work as the one browser for the enterprise. Because otherwise, the user experience sucks because you have to go to different browsers for different applications. So that's the key commitment. We'll see how it goes. The name is ULA, which means navigate in Tamil.
Wow. Forget Brave, forget Edge, forget Chrome. It's all going this way if you want privacy.
And no Firefox.
All right, Andy, let's go to that big hairy topic of generative
By the way,
AI.
it's Ulla, not Ul. Ola is the cat company. But anyways,
Real Tamil. Real Tamil.
Tamil?
He knows his Tamil.
I am Tamilian, yes.
Okay.
So AI. So, almost every vendor that I take a briefing from, either they are AI infused, ChatGPT integrated, or, we are the first, we are the best. So in a sense, they are rushing to integrate all of their applications, about 14 of them, by doing a generative AI ChatGPT integration, which is good. And also, they are trying to do things that are very, very near and dear. For example, their user-based codes is the smaller mid-company vendors. They don't know how to create a proposal. They don't know how to write emails. They don't know how to do a lot of things. And it's going to come back and suggest to them, saying, hey, this is how you write an email. This is your summarization of, whatever the document you have. This is your proposal thing you need to write. A lot of good stuff I see. On the concern side of things, one, I'm not sure if they are ready to implement that yet with the proper privacy and elements and stuff like that in place, because that's required, particularly for the small vendors. They don't know what they're getting into, so they need to know that. So that's one issue that I have with that. And second issue I have with that is that, with the generative AI and they're trying to do only that on the predictive AI side of things. The managed engine part what they have, the AI ops what they have, the IT ops what they have. It's all taking a backseat. So those are my concerns. Good move. I want to see more.
And on the generative vein, one of the areas they're going to be using generative is for Zoho Analytics. It's one of their enterprise-focused products. Zoho Analytics has 14,000 customers, and 10,000 of those customers don't even have another Zoho app. So it's very much a broad play. The generative capabilities coming in, SQL generation, natural language querying, code generation, these sorts of things. I've shared some of Andy's concerns about making sure that there's privacy sensitivity and awareness. But when you're talking about how this rolls out, it's not going to be integrated by default. And there's actually a lot of friction. You have to have administrators making the connections between Zoho apps and these generative capabilities, starting with ChatGPT, but they also have their own aspirations to build their own LLMs. Any other closing thoughts?
Yeah, I think what's really important is Zoho is here building a complete business management system. It's at a price point where the rest of the world can actually participate. As they move up market, large enterprise software companies are going to have to worry. If you're a division of a company that's trying to launch in another country, you should definitely look at Zoho as one of the considerations because they're covering end-to-end everything you need to run business management.
Most integrated suite out there.
And for the AI part of it, even though the short term is concerning, I had a conversation with their head of AI around, and their long term plan is really good about building their own LLMs, their own scripts, and long term is good. I want to see the execution.
All right, and seeing some pretty sophisticated stuff coming to Zoho Analytics, which is the low-cost leader in the analytics space today. Thanks very much for watching. We're here in Austin, the Constellation Game.
And that is the real challenge that IT has, and that's inside the organization too. When I look at the very modest ambitions that most organizations have for employee experience, and that the very modest even expectations they have for customer experience, because even though it's so important to their business and to survive, and I look at this little tiny function that has about 6% of budget, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on what industry you're in, who has to support all this stuff, and how do you do it? So I wanted to talk to you two about what is it going to take? How are you seeing IT supporting experience both inside and outside today? How do you think about it? And so first introduce yourselves and then let's talk about it.
We are serving a whole different set of customers, internal and external. And the more frustrated the internal customer is, the more frustrated the external customer is going to be. So I look at IT from being an enabler, multiplying factor. Getting a perspective from marketing or customer service or contact center or the distribution center, for example, they have their own things that they have on their priority list that we have to take into consideration. So scale, agile planning, and all of that stuff. And until we, from the technology side, pay attention to what the customer is actually facing, we can't really solve a problem. So understanding the customer pain points, knowing where you are at, and then trying to bridge the gap.
How do we better support especially the external audience when we're sitting on all the data, we have all the apps, we have all the silos. Mm-hmm. So how do we support them? Even if they need facility, they need access to that external data as well.
What we did was we analyzed different offerings in the market, and we picked the one that could ingest data fast enough, and then we used our existing logic so that we could turn that data around. Hey, how about in 5 hours, right? And that incrementally got the company to a next level. And then we democratize it to across the company, because now they have a platform. If they want to run Python scripts, they can do that. If they want to run SQL scripts, they can do that. And each one's business unit or each person working in different areas, they got enhanced by the enriched data that they can make better decisions.
That last step, that democratization, you said, all right, so now we've got better data, and I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Right, that's the big difference. So, Nancy, you have an enlightened view on this data situation. How is IT going to really empower marketers, customer experience folks, everyone's dealing with external stakeholders?
Well, first of all, I think a technology organization has got to underpin the entire organization as a whole. And when I joined Avellino,
no CIO of marketing?
Well, I think, yeah, exactly. I actually joined Avellino as head of the program management office, and then took over technology as the next step. Because when I was looking across the organization, the technology was very, very isolated from the other organizations. None of the systems were interacting, or they were not integrated in any way. And it's really about the middleware. It's about, well, first of all, it's about the people. You have to start with the people. And motivating technology organizations to bring up the great ideas like you just talked about. Getting them thinking, getting them empowering the teams to bring to bear what needs to happen. That was the problem. That is the problem of having these disparate SaaS applications being run by those divisions. You have to have it run by the technology organization, which means, though, you then have to be an employee and a divisional facing technology organization that meets their needs. You can't take it over and then go, sorry, get in the back of the line. Right? That doesn't work.
But isn't some of the answer self-service? Like, one of the things I've been putting to CIOs the last month is, are you looking at taking all of your data across all of those applications you have and creating a large language model and creating your own internal way of saying, now you can ask this enterprise GPT, any question about anything we know, and if you have the rights to that data, you can get the answer, right? You say, well, I'll need the security on top of that. And there's a lot of lights going on about that, because IT can't do everything. We've got to figure out how to give tools so that the chief customer officer and the chief marketing officer and the chief experience officer can self-serve. Their teams can self-serve, right?
Self-service is really important for each business unit to be functional. It starts, I think, with IT, because depending on where the company is in their journey, like if they are matured and you have self-service and they know how to go and run the analytics or their models and things, they are good, right? But if you don't have anything, then that's when you start with IT. And what we did was we dedicated a pod just for marketing, so that their roadmap does not get disrupted. And the organic on the other side is where if you can get high intent converting organic traffic, now it pays for keep the lights on, and now you're making some profit. Because your customer experience, whether it's PLA or organic or text ads or email, ultimately when they land on the site, they need to be able to find the product. They need to be able to decrease their anxiety and solve their problem, whatever that is, the post-purchase experience as well. The roadmaps now at some point will converge, but initially we have to invest in marketing side of things, whether it's analytics, whether it's personalization, whether it's getting data together so that they can run their campaigns correctly, whatever that is. And then on the other side is site stability and performance and searchability, product discovery, post-purchase experience, and all that. So once you have all that pieces tied together, now you can build AI models and everything else, because the foundation has to be there first.
So maybe we can wrap this conversation up with this tension that I've seen emerging. And it's not a conflict, but there's two approaches, it seems, to making our experienced stakeholders happy. And one is the KPI approach. We're going to measure the heck out of this. You were talking about understanding where your organic traffic is and what percentage is the mix, and understanding all these numbers very intellectually. And then there's another thread that's been discussed, another path, which says if you have to be values-led in terms of how you're going to be solving customer problems, how you're going to be meeting their experience needs, and that you can't fix the KPIs the right way unless you have the right values.
Yeah, I think it's really key to, again, get your data sets, making sure your inputs are sound, making sure you create that single source of truth, and then have that opportunity to bring those tools to everyone in the organization. And again, making everyone in the organization feel like you are their partner. 100%. From a technology perspective,
stakeholder management,
I have to be. And I meet with every division head. Am I meeting your needs? Are you getting what you need? How do I jiggle things around so that every person feels like they're getting at least their priorities taken care of?
Well, that's a wrap for episode 57 of CRTV. Get set for our next episode in 2 weeks.
That's right. Co-hosts and partners in crime, Holger Mueller and Liz Miller, will bring you episode 58 of CRTV. In the meantime, follow us on LinkedIn and on Twitter at ConstellationR and at the hashtag CRTV Show.
Don't forget to subscribe to Constellation Research on YouTube and bookmark our blog page to keep up with Larry Dignan's enterprise news coverage. Thanks for watching and have a great week. Popping the Pepto-Bismol, I tell you. Ugh. Are you there, Dion?
I sure am. I'm just
very good. Can you, a little less headroom? Can you tilt your camera down a bit?
Yep.
There you go. Cool. I'm in rough shape this morning. All right. Well, I got some sort of bug. I'm going to try to muscle through this. And
okay. All right. I'm looking forward to the bloopers today, then.
And don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to subscribe to Constellation's... Man. Holger, bye.
One of those days.
From our recent Ambient Intelligence Summit. I'm sorry. That's wrong. It's the Ambient Experience Summit. I'm going to do that again. I'm proving the point, aren't I? Sort of confused.
It wasn't too bad.
I'm going back to bed.